This week on The Riff, we talk about Duck Dynasty, the book of Matthew, and how one North Pointer found Jesus. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
All right, here we are. Welcome to The Riff. And Riff, we got a special guest on The Riff, my friend Tommy Gibbons.
That's me.
Tommy, hey, so today's Riff is really like, we're just going to talk about your story. So I'm interviewing you, and we'll just kind of get your story because we've known, we worked together at T-Mobile a long time ago. And then we ran into each other in the lobby at North Point, and it was hey man, haven't seen you in 5 years. Yeah. A lot's happened. But you also told me the first time I met, like, hey man, I found Jesus this summer at North Point, made a decision and got baptized here. So I personally have not even heard this story yet.
Cool.
We're like, let's do it first on The Riff. So give me your background. Like, you from Springfield, grow up here? Like, what's kind of the Cliff Notes on Tommy's life?
I am what they would call an implant. Been up here 15 years now, from Houston, Texas. Born and raised down in Texas. Shocking to move up here. It's weird. There's actually 4 seasons. That's crazy.
Yep.
Down there, it's hotter. But we've been up here, just kind of moved up here to kind of reset everything, kind of start figuring out life, I guess. A couple kids in tow, so we really found that we were kind of more too reliant on my parents for babysitting, things like that. I'm like, hey, if we're going to be parents, we need to be parents. So we always had to invite my in-laws are actually up here. They started in Rogersville, and now are out in Republic. So they always invited us, hey, you ever want to come up? And at the point we were down there, it was like, hey, we're going to do it. Let's do it. So we boogied on up here. August was the month we moved up here, and then just kind of hit the ground running.
Cool. And
kind of pushed through it. Yeah. And got stable, now more stabler, now that I know a fella named Jesus. Yeah. But just kind of, just trucking along, raising kids, and working.
Yeah. So tell me about your background. Did you grow up with any kind of religious background, church, Christianity, God? What was that like?
So when it comes to that, I say high school age, kind of like the nihilist kid, like, probably if I grew up in the 80s and stuff, it'd be The Cure I'd listen to, that type of person. No knock on Cure lovers.
So that's fine. If that's what you're into.
But yeah, it's basically like I'm on my own here. It's all up to me kind of attitude. Yeah. And then of course, you do run into Christians throughout your life. There are a couple out there. But anything I ever learned religious wise was, I was the guy who would pick and choose verses to kind of let's stump the Christian. Yeah. Well, what's this really mean? Well, why does it say this? Or, there's so much bad stuff in the Bible. Yeah. I kind of went that route. And then, honestly kind of just shoved out all the spirituality stuff aside. Yeah. Just like, I'm just going to focus on life, move forward, go through it. And then eventually got to probably around having my first kid, Elijah, my firstborn, became a little more spiritual. Yeah. But not in the sense of like, God through Jesus and things like that. Yeah.
What were you into? Is it like any kind of new age stuff or just like general spirituality, try to be a good person, karma? What was the thing?
Yeah. I did kind of fall into the trap of the like, if you're a good person, good things will happen type mentality.
Yeah. Manifesting stuff.
Yeah. But it never really, nothing ever stuck. I explored other things, Hinduism, Muslim, Islam, and then not so much the Jewish stuff because it's, for me, that felt like a culturally thing I just couldn't get into just because I'm not Jewish or, there's no Jewish in my, my lineage. And then kind of just try to go out and just try to figure it out myself. Like, okay, this is what happens when you die or, things like that. Trying to, self-explain things. So kind of went from there and then again, trucking along, kind of it'd come up and I'd be like, oh yeah, it eventually got to where like, okay, we were created by something.
Something, yeah.
Right? You know, something can't come from nothing. And so I went to, again, like, okay, there is a creator.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, whether that's outlandish aliens or whatever you want to call it, you know, whatever it is. So went to that. And then it's, you know, we can kind of, I guess, get into the testimony of like how I found Jesus.
Yeah, let's do it.
So probably, I want to say the beginning of August of last year, 2025. I used to watch a show called Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
Great. I love the antics, you know. Redneck antics is just amazing.
Yeah.
So I always watched it for that, you know, and they do pray at the end of the show and things like that. But I never paid attention to it.
Right.
But it actually took, you know, random newsfeed. Phil Robinson, you know, I finally found out he died. You knew he died. He died a few months before.
Right.
I think it was May or something. But anyways, I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. That was a real cool dude, you know. And then so I did what probably most people do, especially this day and age. I pulled up some YouTube and started watching some videos of Phil, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, he spoke at he was giving speeches and stuff. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I was like, oh, okay. So I started watching a few of those, and then 9 times out of 10, anytime he talked about, you know, Jesus and stuff, he was like, read the Gospels. Don't worry about anything else. Just read the Gospels. Yeah. I was like, huh, never quite heard it that way. Yeah. I've always tried to start at Genesis and, you know,
just cover to cover, front to back.
Either confused or passed out sleeping.
By the time you get to Leviticus, things get weird. Yeah.
And then so I was like, okay, I've never quite heard it that way.
Yeah.
So picked up a Bible, opened to Matthew, started reading.
Wow.
And then it was, you know, nothing crazy. You know, I didn't hit rock bottom or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's definitely, when you're not in Christ, I'm a firm believer, because I felt it, that there is something missing.
Yeah.
Right. No matter what, no matter the success, even the failures, things like that, there's something missing. So read through Matthew. I was like, man, this is some good stuff. But by the time I got done with just Matthew itself, I was like, okay, this is true. Like, this is real. I don't know what hit me.
Yeah.
But I was just like, okay, this is 100% true.
You didn't have like an angel show up in the middle of the night?
No, I didn't,
just
you know.
reading through Matthew.
Nothing crazy. No crazy dreams or anything like that. It was just purely like, I read it, I took it in. And then looking back on it now, I think there was something in me that was like, pay attention as I was going through it.
Right.
But also like there was a sense of like, almost like, oh, this is what I'm missing. You know? So I hit the end of Matthew and I was just like, okay, I'm hooked. Like this is.
Yeah. How does the story end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go through that and then I'm just like, okay. And then prior to that, so this was August, we had been going to North Point, you know, just kind of, you know, it just so happened to be, it's pretty close, things like that, you know, because it's hard to get a truckload of kids over to, you know, halfway across town and stuff like that. You know, Springfield takes you 20 minutes to get anywhere. So, so we kind of hit on North Point. We did visit years ago in the past, but just started going there. And then it was right as Jeremy was leaving. Yeah. I think it was like 4 weekends before he was like, hey, you know, I'm going back to Washington.
So real quick so did you start going to North Point before you picked up Matthew?
Yeah.
So you had been around.
Correct.
And then the Robertson thing happened.
Yeah.
Started listening to him. So around the same time. Yeah. Okay.
And then, and then we were going, I was basically my son, my middle, I guess he's not middle anymore. We have a 3-year-old, but Riley, he's my 15-year-old. He was already going to North Point.
Okay.
And then all
was
of
he
a
going
sudden,
to youth group on Wednesdays?
Yeah, he was doing the youth group thing, and then he would also, we'd drop him off Sundays.
Yeah.
And then it got to where like, might as well hang out, you know?
Yeah.
See what it's about.
Yeah.
And then it's just like every sermon since, it's like, get out of my head, you know, stop talking to me so, you know, so clearly. You know, and that's been with, you know, Jeremy, Martz, and then, you know, even you know, the first time you guest speaking, I was just like, dude, like, how do you know I need to hear this stuff?
Yeah.
You know? And then so yeah, it was an exciting time, you know, because it's like August, I'm like, I submit to Christ and I'm just like, you're the man. Yeah. I get it now. I've been trying to control my life for so long, you know, and I've said it this way, like I've never felt, the moment I accepted Christ, like I've never felt that immense peace that just came over me, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm talking like I could have been like sitting in a burning building, and if I would have accepted like that peace that just came over me was just outrageous.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is amazing.
Where were you? Like, how did that happen? Was it a moment of prayer? Were you at home? Were you in the church? Like, was it even like an exact moment where you're like, this is when I did it?
It was almost like, so I got through Matthew and I was like, okay, like this is kind of cool. You know, like this is real. This is true, you know? And then it was just like, okay, you know, and basically like the Carrie Underwood song, you know, Jesus, take the wheel. You know, it's like, I'm all yours. I want to be as like you as I can be. Yeah. Even though never going to happen, but you know, there's no hurt in trying, you know, and that's definitely become that shift where it's like, okay, I have a purpose now. Yeah. Because even before, I would say with having kids, you know, my wife, you know, just a loving family, stuff like that. Yeah. I always struggle with purpose. Like, what am I here for? Yeah. You know, and it's like, you know, and that doesn't take any love away from, you know, family or friends or anything like that. But it's just like no guidance, you know? And then so without guidance, there's no purpose. And then it's just like, oh, well, I start reading the Bible and I'm like, oh, there's purpose. Yeah. You know? It wasn't long after, you know, it might've been as soon as I was done with Matthew, I was just like, you know, I'm yours, God, you know, like I understand who I am and who you are. Wow. To give me those steps I need, you know, to inherit the kingdom. You know, it's like, oh, I have life now. Yeah. You know, and before it's just like, you really don't, you know, you're just trugging along. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, you know, I have this purpose now. And, you know, and it's been amazing. Like, cause I was the kid in high school that made fun of the Jesus kids, you know? Yeah. But now I'm like, oh, I'm one of those kids now. Yeah. You know, as an adult, but even then I'm just like, I've never found something I've been more passionate about. Yeah. Like, you know, coming into Christ and just being like, yes, you know, this is what I needed. This is what I've been missing. Right. You know, and I always say I'm kind of easier now on it because it's like, you know, with the purpose and stuff, you have the, you know, it's, I don't know how to say this right, but like there's moments now where it's like, there's that compulsion, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and it's as simple as, you know, I'll use an example, but working at a job site, one of the electricians, he was just having a bad day. His helper and stuff got upset, said some not kind words and took off on him, you know? And I was just like, hey, I don't know if you're a believer or not, but all we got to do is just keep our eyes on Jesus. Yeah. And, you know, and that's all I said. Yeah. And like like something that you could see him change. And he was just like, man, he's like, I really needed to hear that. Yeah. I'm like, oh, what? You know, I was just trying to, you know, help out, you know, and get you in the right mindset and stuff. And, you know, and situations like that happen, and like stuff like that hasn't happened before. So it's exciting for me because it's like, oh, there's a fellowship here now. Like, yeah. Those in belief, it's like, yeah, there's that commonality, right? It's because I was a big believer too before, like when it comes to church, is like, it was that building, right? I didn't understand the fellowship part, and that it's the individuals that make the church. Absolutely, right? Yeah. It's not the building. That's why we're here right now. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, it's been nothing but exciting. I'll even say with, you know, in August, right, North Point's next baptism session was late October. I was like, I can't wait that long. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah. You know, I was looking like, man, I was even thinking about driving down to West Monroe. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure Jace, he baptized me in the back in the river. Yeah. But no, I was patient with it. And then I actually signed up for I don't go to the Saturday service. We go Sundays, but I was like, I got to get there as soon as possible. So I'm doing it the day before we normally go, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's just been an amazing trip. I mean, it's been amazing, the transformation as well. And don't get me wrong, I have plenty to work on still.
Always,
but yeah.
It's always a journey, man. No,
Absolutely.
you never arrive. Like one of my friends told me, is like, hey, sanctification is messy. And sanctification, you said it earlier, like I'm going to try to be like Jesus. And it's like in our trying, we stumble and mess up and, we're all in process. And it's like, you don't ever, it's like we're justified at salvation, but sanctification is what's happening on our 80 plus years here on earth, man, just going from like becoming more like him. And then we ultimately become glorified, and we get to heaven. And it's like, there's that final time when you get totally renewed, new body, new heavens, new earth, the whole thing. But in between, man, it's messy. And we all, I think that's one of the things about like North Point and like the safe place thing. It's like all of us are different mile markers on this journey.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And where you are in the journey is not as important as just that you're on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how would you describe, if someone knew Tommy BC, like before Jesus and to today, and it's been, 6 months, how do you think you are different today than you were a year ago?
Oh man. There's quite a few ways. The biggest thing, so I think the biggest thing that I've come to realize is, it comes back to living that Christ-like life, is I honestly, no matter the person, whether they're a believer or not, I no longer can harbor hate towards somebody.
Wow.
And the only reason I do that, right, is even non-believers, people of different faiths, things like that. Well, unbeknownst to them, God created them just as he created me, right?
Yeah.
So they're no better or worse than I am.
Yep.
They're just on a different path. They're at a different point in their life to where, I pray it clicks for them one day, and then they come into Christ and kind of get it, right? Because I don't have all the answers. I'm sure you don't have all the answers, right? But I have this free gift that I by no means I didn't earn and I can never earn through God's grace, that will always have my back as well, though.
Yeah. Right.
And, that even comes with things like loneliness, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about like surface level human feeling like, oh, I'm alone in a room.
Yeah.
But I know like I will never truly be alone because I now I'm with Christ, so he's got my back, and I know that.
Yeah.
So I don't have worries about those feelings and things like that. And that's not to say that every day since I submitted has been running through fields, frolicking and stuff. It's still and
you still got to get up and go to work the next day, and
the Bible doesn't lie to you and say like, hey, your life's easy now.
Right.
It's like. It says you will probably be killed because you believe. So I mean, it goes all the way that way. And I've even had my acceptance towards it is, I've had, sorry, honey, but I've had the conversation with my wife where it's like, if we lost everything, I'm okay. Because the Bible tells me, God's going to give me everything I need. Yeah. Right. And a lot of things we have in life are wants. Right. If you boil it down to that specific thing, it's like, well, what do you need? Well, you need food, shelter, stuff like that, but that is available. And I try to explain it to her that way too. It's like, with our family unit, as far as like in-laws, my parents, just relatives, there's always going to be some place for us somewhere. Yeah. So I'm not too worried about that. We're not gonna, it's not going to be that bad of a route where I'm, we're living in a refrigerator box or something, Right. And not to say that, because some people don't have that. So I get that worry. But yeah, she wasn't too happy when I said, I don't want to lose the house. I don't want to lose the car. I'm like, oh, I don't want you to either. Right. But if it happens, I know that it's.
So there's like an underlying belief in you today that we are like, hey, God's going to take care of me. Whereas a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago, it's like I'm on my own. It's like it's me or not. Either I get it done or I don't. Yeah, there's no one really to back me up except for somebody who doesn't get it, or those people around you who aren't because you don't. I guess the best way to say it is like it's hard, and this is coming from being around people as a non-believer versus a believer. Right. Even that's been totally crazy because. Like you somebody who's truly in Christ and follows that life, like, are some of the most amazing people. Like, you're just like, you don't know me, but you care this much about me, you know?
Right.
As opposed to that, it's like, yeah, you know, if somebody tries to give you something and you're like, well, what's your game? You know, what are you trying to gain from this? Why are you being nice to me? You know, so things like that. And so, I mean, yeah, it's totally night and day. Again, still have stuff I got to go through, but on the whole, it's like just that feeling of like, okay, it's possible.
Yeah.
Know? I guess, you know, and I guess the Bible even tells us that too, right? All things are possible. You know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I mean, it's, I would almost say night and day.
Yeah.
I told one of my in-laws, that like, hey, you know, I finally, you know, submitted and, you know, I'm getting baptized on this day. Oh, we've been praying for you and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, you know, and it's like, yeah, I've noticed a pretty big change in you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Is that good or bad?
Yeah.
But
tell me about your baptism experience. So I know you're like jonesing to get it done, show up on Saturdays to get a day early. Like what was that day like when you when you went through water baptism?
Well,
let's think about this. Like there's probably people listening who have accepted Christ, but maybe have not gotten water baptized yet. Or maybe they're around North Point. Like I'm where you were 6 months ago. I just haven't made that decision yet.
Yeah.
Talk to me through about your baptism experience and what that was like.
So baptism, when it came to that, you know, of course I was ready to get it done and get going, because for me, what I looked for in my baptism, you know, I know people are like, oh, it's a public declaration, things like that. But the way I read it is it's the death of the old me and the rebirth of the new me in Christ, right?
Yes, sir.
And so with that was my main focus.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know,
kill the old guy.
Yeah. And just, you know, make sure, you know, because it's easy to hit that broad path. I want the narrow path.
Yeah.
Right. And then with that, it's, you know, I was excited, but there was some nerves, you know. So to kind of cool those nerves, I sat down and I kind of thought to myself, you know, I was kind of, you know, having a chat with God and, you know, talking to Jesus. I was like, hey, I was kind of nervous, you know, I'm kind of nervous about this, you know, and then all of a sudden it just hit me. It's like, oh, I don't have to be, because you're with me. Right. You know, you're going to walk me through this. So if I fall down the stairs getting into the water or whatever that is, that's not the issue, right? Right. There's nothing to be scared of. Yeah. You know, whether there's 500 people out there watching, I didn't notice anybody. I'll tell you that. I was in the moment. So it might as well have been me and, you know, me and the dunkers. But yeah, so I mean, it was exciting. And it just felt good. Yeah. It felt good. Yeah. It felt good to get baptized.
And part of that story too is your son also got baptized, correct?
Yeah, he was able to wait. So he went through our normal service time. But yeah, he got baptized the next day, and that was cool. Which I'm kind of glad, because it was good to get to sit out and watch him go through it, as opposed to, you know, being in the bathroom changing out of the wet clothes and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, that was exciting. And you know, and it's even trickled down to my 7-year-old and my 3-year-old. You know, it's our routine at night is we'll go read through the child's Bible. We'll read a story. Yeah. And then we'll pray. Yeah. And then we'll go to bed. Yeah. And it's just cool. You know, it's a good routine. And it's a great routine, because we've already read through it once. Yeah. And then we just started over. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, we're kind of getting through, King David. We just got through a little bit of King David and stuff. So we continue forward with that. And then, it's just good. It's just, you know, God is good.
When you, so if you're talking to people about Jesus now, how do you start that conversation? Or if people ask you, how do you explain the gospel to people who don't know?
Basically, the way I first do it is I kind of ask where they're at. Hey, you know, what do you know? What do you know about Jesus? Or what do you think about, you know, this or that? And then I just let them talk, just to kind of gauge how they should be talked to, right? Because you can't just go, you know, I've been to the fire brimstone churches, I've been to the, you know, you're perfect the way you are churches, things like that. And I think it's important to flex towards who you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Because if you say the wrong thing to me about, whatever it is, this is how you're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
If you do it wrong, well, you lost me.
Right. Because then you get associated to one or the other.
Correct.
Now you broke people into two categories, which I think is interesting. And it's obviously not just two categories, but the fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
And are you the one who told me that you grew up around that?
No, we visited when we first moved up here. We visited a church, and it was all fire brimstone. We're like, I don't think we're coming back here.
Yeah,
but
scared. Scare people out of hell.
Yeah.
And the other one was the perfect the way you are church. What does that mean to you? How do you describe that?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, nobody's perfect,
right?
Except for
Christ,
who he's not here in the flesh anymore yet, But yeah, so the perfect way you are is like, hey, you don't need to change, or another thing that since coming into Christ, I don't know if it's going to be a hot button issue, but when people say my truth, I'm like, there's only the truth. You know, there's not. You don't have a truth. I'm sorry, but this book does.
Were you a my truther before Jesus?
I was. I don't know if I would ever specifically say like, oh, well, this is my truth, but I was more of a believe what you want, kind of like, that could be true for you.
Yeah.
But, if that's what you need to cope with, that's fine.
Right. Just vague spirituality. Yeah.
And things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's the way I look at the Bible now is basically my manual for life.
Yeah.
How to do life. Right.
Yeah.
Because it touches every part of life.
It does.
That book,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen the cross-reference like graph.
Yeah.
Where it has like all the. And I'm just like, man, it's like, and the more you get into it, the more like things around you, in my opinion, like back it up.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like one guy who can write a book is not going to have that great a cross-reference.
Right.
And this is 40 people over 1,500 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? This touches all the way back to here, and and so that part amazes me. But yeah, I try to use it as, just a guide.
Yeah,
because it's the truth.
Yeah.
So
I derailed you earlier when you're talking about explaining the gospel to someone who doesn't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, you're good.
I rabbit trailed on you.
You're good.
It's my specialty. So you said gauge where they're at.
Yeah. Basically, I gauge where they're at, and then I kind of I'll ask them some questions, and then sometimes it can be hard questions, but the way I kind of explain it is like, they're Jesus was obviously real. History has confirmed that, right?
Yeah.
And then so it's like, okay, cool. That's awesome. And then, then you have other religions that do kind of touch on, I think Islam is like, he was a good prophet.
Yeah.
Well, it's my thinking with that is like, is the argument of like, well, if he's a good prophet, wouldn't he be telling the truth? And then if you go and look at the Bible, the red letters.
Yeah.
How can he be? Is he lying when he says like he and the Father are one? Are one and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, so and it does depend on who I'm talking to. I've had a discussion with a gentleman who doesn't believe in anything, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of went through the different religions like Buddhism and things like that. And then I learned stuff I didn't even know, like monks like slowly poison themselves so they can try to become petrified in enlightenment.
Didn't know that.
Like, yeah. Well, that sounds exciting, Yeah. But even then, like trying to research it, and this is my research, but it's like I couldn't find an answer to like who do Buddhists believe created them. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole reincarnation thing. Well, even that should have a beginning.
Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't find any solid answers there. And then I would just kind of go through it. But the core of it is to realize that, Jesus came and he was in fact a good teacher. Absolutely. But what he said was true. But then I explained to him as far as that goes, like, okay, the thing I try to hit on the most is the death and resurrection. Yeah. I think that's the most important part. Right. And in the fact that, even in his death, and again, as coming into belief, like I didn't really think about it, but like when he was on the cross, he suffered for literally every sin for us, right? Yeah. Like everything, the worst to the smallest. So that is blows my mind because I don't think anybody truly can understand like what that would feel like.
It's almost unfathomable.
Yeah. So I try to get that point across. You know, I do like it when I'm asked more questions and stuff because I think anytime you go out there, if you're trying to have a conversation about Christ and you almost like, you know, if I pulled out a notepad and started reading what I wrote down, that's not going to translate as well as
answering questions.
Letting the Spirit go through me to answer those questions, right?
Yeah.
Just because, you know, a big argument for the Bible was, it was written by man, you know, man corruptible and all this other stuff. So it's like, well, that's very true, but they were inspired through the Spirit, you know, and through God to create this. Yeah. You know, and I feel that works when you are out there, you know, spreading the good news. Yeah. You know,
well, you're doing what Jesus would do. You know, like the Great Commission is like, go and make disciples, get baptized, teach them to obey. I've always thought it was interesting, the Great Commission, and I don't know if there's anything to this or not, but he says, make disciples, then baptize them, then obey. It's like you're almost starting to make a disciple of someone before they even have accepted or believe. Yeah. You know, so discipleship starts with loving people that haven't surrendered their life yet. And so there's discipleship that starts first, you know, and you made a little comment that I want to latch on to. You said, hey, when you, in that moment, I can feel the Spirit working through me. How would you describe that feeling? Because that would be something that would be new to you. So before Jesus, that doesn't happen. Yeah. At salvation, the Holy Spirit comes inside of you, you know, and then now the Holy Spirit's speaking really through you as you're sharing the gospel. How would you describe that feeling?
It's almost like hearing the stories of like, I was being operated on, but I was up in the room watching it happen. Yeah. Right? So it's me. It's like, there's words coming out of my mouth, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what's being said. Kind of. Yeah. Like I know what's being said, but I don't know where it came from. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not me. You know, this is divine intervention, if you want to call it. Well,
it's like Matthew or Jesus when he sent his disciples out. He's like, in that moment, don't worry what you speak. The Spirit will give you utterance in the moment. Yeah. You know, so he sends his disciples out without a game plan and says, hey, you know, go start and like start talking and like let it, and you know, see what happens. You know, I think sometimes it's like, hey, I want this perfect plan. You know, but like in the moment, you know, I found that. One of the most impactful things you can do is let God speak through you. You know, absolutely. And when you partner with God to do what He's doing, whether it's sharing the gospel with somebody or even something as simple as just like serving at church, it's like, or expressing the love of Jesus in different ways. It's like that moment God's moving through. Today's Wednesday, and we're recording this. I went to Dream Center last night, and honestly, yesterday I was kind of in a funky mood. I was just like, ugh. I just want, you know.
I've had that with doing I volunteer at student services.
Yeah. And so I go to Dream Center and like serve, and I get in my truck to go home. Like that's awesome. Like that, like it fills your joy bucket, and it's because that's what Jesus is doing. And so it's like, instead of like trying to formulate how to make yourself build a happy life, go find what God's already doing and just go jump in the lane with Him. You know, and
even
it's
if
like,
you have to start out with just watching, you know, just hanging back and watching. You know, it's like it's there, and if you're quiet enough or still enough, you can feel that. You can feel that presence too. You know, it's like, okay, you know, and again, it's not the specific building you're in. It's not any of that. It's that community. It's that, you know, that I think a lot of that presence, you know, especially in a bigger group is just, you know, it's the Spirit, you know, and you can just feel it, you know, and it's hard to, you know, it's like having a conversation with God, you know, because I used to struggle with, you know, okay, God's going to speak to me, so that means I'm going to hear a voice and I'm going to have a conversation, and it's like, well, maybe sometimes, but majority of the time, it's like you just need to kind of be quiet and kind of just, you know, listen, you know, because it could be something as small as like, you know, one time, and this isn't who I was, but like a lady in front of me was having issues paying for, you know, a couple of things at the store, and it was just this pull of like, okay, you know, I'll go ahead and grab that for you, you know, and then it turns out it was for something that was, you know, something nice for a group of people who needed help and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a bonus. But you know, it's that compulsion, right? Now, does that mean I'm going to buy stuff for everybody who's in front of me at the checkout line everywhere.
I'm gonna go start shopping in front of Tom.
Yeah, I got 800 kids. So.
Yeah.
But in those moments, like when you can really feel that, it's just like incredible. Like, it's just the greatest feeling because you're just like, I don't know why I did that, even though you do, but you don't really, it's like that's out of place.
Sometimes you overthink that. It's like, well, is that God? I'm like, okay, well, it's either God telling me to do something kind for someone. Who else could it be? It might just be me. Either way, that's probably Christ working in me to care and love somebody else. And it's certainly not like the devil. You know what I mean? Like, like the enemy's not going to get in your head and be like, hey, go buy groceries for that widow. It's like, no, it's like, so I always, if there's anything good that comes towards me, I make an assumption that's God. And then you just take the step, and it's like, and so I just think it's those things. Sometimes we overthink God's voice.
Yeah, and then I also believe, I heard too, like, look at it through the lens of the Bible, right? Well, that helps a lot of things too, right? Because when before I submitted to Christ, it was like a lot of negativity in my head, things like that, and then once I kind of got cracked open the Bible, read through Matthew and things like that, I started understanding things like that's the devil,
Yeah.
He's in my head because, I didn't have Christ in my life at the time. So there's a vacancy.
Yeah.
Right. So something's got to fill it.
Yeah. It's lies, deception, untruths, like, and people go in these dark mental spirals. And it's like
that, the me, all about me and things like that.
Jesus said, the enemy, like a roaring lion seeking, he steals, kills, and destroys, but I've come to give you life and give it more abundantly. Yeah. And it's like, there's two kingdoms, two paths. And it's like, there's a kingdom of God and it's kingdom of darkness. That's it.
Yeah.
All humanity's in two buckets, and that's oversimplification.
Oh yeah.
But it is like this concept of like, hey, you got to realize there's a plan for your life that God has for you, but there's a plan for your life that the enemy has for you, and it's like, anyway, stepping into the kingdom, saying yes to Jesus, following him. What are some, as we close out here, what are some practical things you're doing? So you said yes to Jesus in August, you're living this thing out. Sounds like you got Bible as part of your life, like prayer's part of your life. What are some other practical things you're doing these days that are helping you continue to you found Jesus, now you're following? What are some practical things you've got going on?
I think one of the best things to do, right? I definitely could read the Bible more, pray more. Always. I think everybody can. Yep. I would do recommend a study Bible. Mm-hmm. It depends on who your cup of tea is. I actually have John MacArthur's study Bible, right? Doesn't mean I believe everything, the way he laid it out.
But it's got cross references in there, like certain things.
And it's a better understanding of me just trying to wing it on my own. Like, well, I think this means, but it also helps too. It's incredible opening up more at North Point. Yeah. It's like, there's a wealth of just anything you can want there, right? Knowledge or, just, hey, pray for me, whatever that is. But there's people to talk to, right? Yeah. And it comes back to that community thing. Right. And it's just like the community is a good foundation. I would always recommend if you're coming in, talk to somebody. Yeah. After service, introduce yourself or, how's it going? It doesn't have to be anything deep or crazy. Right. Just start talking to people, because it's a good place, right? It is a safe place to find and follow Jesus. And it's like, that is legitimate. That's true. Mm-hmm. Like I have not had one bad conversation there. I'm not saying there never will be or anything like that. Yeah. But I mean, it's amazing how just open that is. I think other people are more important than you would probably think. Yeah. At least that's through my lens, right? Because I was a very isolated lone wolf type, right? And I don't get the lone wolf thing because big deal, it's one wolf, I'd rather have a pack of wolves, Yeah. But I think it is, especially if you do it through Christ, opening yourself up more. Yeah. It may sound selfish, but you are more rewarded. Yeah. Because there's more incoming, right? Right. And that could be a tidbit of knowledge that, because I think, another thing about as far as like going to make disciples is like, when I first got into it, it was I thought I was out there to convert people. Yeah. And that's not true at all. I'm planting seeds, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
that's God's job. My job is to plant the seeds.
Yep.
And just, if I can make them think, right? If I can get them to think about something,
Yeah.
and they are led to that revelation, then that's awesome.
Right.
So I think that's important. But other than that, it's just, I go 0 to 100 in things I get into.
Yeah.
And since I've hit that, it's just, I try to learn as much as I can,
Yeah.
about it, and just go from there. Cause it does get confusing. I've had questions of like, why are there so many different types of, Christianity,
Yeah.
sex and stuff and like stuff like
Yeah.
that. Sex, and I'm just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I even got to the point where I tell people like, hey, I'm not Christian. I follow Christ.
Yeah.
I'm a follower of Jesus. That's what I am. Right. I don't need to buy into the different, different groups and stuff like that. Because it's just important. But I think the best thing to do, honestly, is just talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing you can do.
Talk about your faith,
Yeah.
get in the word, pray,
let them,
people.
And you don't even have to. I've just given my testimony before to people, like, right? I'm not there to try to like, hey, do you know Jesus? Things like that. I've just talked about Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not, because I've also been on the other end of that, you need Jesus, the overbearingness, right? And and it is hard with as many churches as there are.
Yeah, it's quite a few.
You can throw a rock and, it's
hit a church or bank.
Yeah, or Chinese restaurant here. But no, there are, unfortunately, there are those churches out there.
Yeah.
The fire brimstone,
Yeah.
that, kind of lead you astray. But if you ever feel you're getting that way, open the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? That'll get you back on the path.
Right.
And get you where you need to go, right? Because I've heard things in churches where I'm like, and then you read a couple chapters, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Can't go back over there.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
You definitely want to stay in the Bible. I think prayer is super important. I think I definitely need to work on that the most. I don't, a couple of times a day I'll pray, but I'm like, man, I'm missing so many opportunities.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, and a big part of that too is fellowship. The
actual people. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the people.
That's the Bible talks about, right? Every joint supplies. The ear can't say that I have no need for you. And some of the ways that God's spoken to me the clearest is through the mouths of other people around me. And like someone will say something to me, like a believer will say, a friend, like, and it's just something that sticks in my head for whatever reason. Yeah. And it's like God then uses what that person said to do a work in my heart. And so a lot of times when you live in isolation, it is very difficult to follow Jesus by yourself. Yeah. There's a lot of one another's in the New Testament, and you can't one another anybody if you're alone.
It's almost part of like self-worship too.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to figure it out. It's a lot of you,
That'll preach.
And it's not, and Christ wasn't about that. He was about loving everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a legit thing, it's important.
Your life's not your own, right? Part of following Jesus is like, this is not I already explained once, it always stuck with me. Like when you say yes to Jesus, you're no longer the main character of the story.
Yeah.
You're saying that all of human history, the protagonist of the story is Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm like passerby number 64 in the background in this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm the last name to roll in the credits, not the first.
Yeah.
And so now my life is actually about supporting him, and my life is about making his name great, not mine. And a lot of times when you get alone, you end up living a lifestyle that ultimately conveys, hey, it's all about me. And then your thoughts are what I'm not getting and what's going on with me and how am I doing. And it's like, that is very like the individualistic thing that about Western society is, runs countercultural to the kingdom of God. Yeah. So anyway.
Absolutely.
Riff Raff, we're at time. Tommy, thanks for coming in and telling your story.
Hey, appreciate you having me.
Part of what we're doing, like with Riff and other things, is the idea of like making North Pointers the heroes. Like there's a lot of heroes in our seats, and you're not coming here saying you're a hero, but in my eyes, man, like what God's done in your life is powerful, and more people need to hear stories about who's sitting in the aisle next to him at North Point. You have no idea who you're sitting next to. So hopefully North Point, if you're listening to this, crack open a conversation with someone in the lobby. You never know who you're talking to. Hope you guys enjoyed getting to know Tommy's story like I did. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.